Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Vince.
Hey, listen.
We've got Chris.
Yeah.
And I'm Kia. Welcome to the show. In case you didn't recognize those audio bites, we're talking about some Zelda, Ocarina of Time specifically. You might think, wait a minute. This is a comic book podcast. What's going on? We're talking video games now? I mean, we probably will talk video games for a little bit. We are talking about the Ocarina of Time manga, Toki no Ocarina, by Akira Himakawa. I think I'm saying that right. Somebody let me know if I'm not.
That's close enough. Which is actually like two people. It's their pen name.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
Two women. Their names are, let me get it for you, A. Honda and S. Nagano.
Okay, thank you.
And they previously, if you knew their work, Akira Karataka and Nui Ono, which you may not know them, because I certainly don't. But yeah, it's two women. They've been working on writing Zelda manga and Astro Boy manga for a long time now.
Excellent. So this book came out in Japan first, right around the time of the video game, right? Something like, what was it? 1999?
The game came out in 98 for us in America, and I think earlier in Japan, but still like early 98. The manga started in 99. But the vibe I get is that they started writing this while the game was still in production, or at least close to release. Which is
that makes sense.
Yeah, they definitely have like a story Bible, but I don't think they played the game. They're not like, oh, this part's really frustrating. Like, I don't think they know.
No, well, like, not to get too far ahead, but I think it's really interesting because they don't have any nostalgia for the piece, because this was published like in the States like a decade later,
right?
But in English, but like they don't have these like, oh well, these are the key like big moments of Ocarina of Time that everybody expects to see. Like it would be like for Final Fantasy 3/6, like if you didn't realize the opera scene was precious. Sometimes they just kind of like ignore things that I'm like, oh well, that's like the biggest thing to me in Ocarina of Time, and they just kind of like gloss right over it, which is funny to me.
Yeah. And it's worth also noting, like this is our first time talking about manga on the show, and there's a lot of manga that comes out of Japan and a lot that doesn't. So yeah, it took us 10 years in America to actually get this. It was like 2008 when it finally came out, I think. Yeah. And so of course until that point, American fans might want to read this, and so there's fan translations out there. And so the version that I was reading was a fan translation. I guess I should give credit to the translator. It was signed by Goddess Rinoa. I don't know who that is, but thank you for translating this book.
Is Rinoa
because
Goddess
for 10
in
years,
Zelda or like Final Fantasy or something? The name sounds familiar.
It may be in some video game lore, but I don't think it's from at least this game.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure this is definitely not the character from the video game translating it and sending it to the real world. But that would be cool too. And
I'm pretty sure that's also the version I read, Kia. Vince, did your version have a lot of like, damn it?
No, it didn't. I'm reading the Viz Media production translated by John Wary and the English adaptation by Stephen Stan Brown.
So I think, Kia, I'm assuming yours had swearing that is well known in fan translations.
Maybe there was. I didn't particularly notice it standing out to me, but maybe I'm just numb to it and I glossed right over it. Yeah. I don't know.
It happened enough times in a children's book that I was like, it feels like a fan translation.
That makes sense. So yeah, this whole thing is split into two books. We're doing the first book this time, then the second book the next time. And so we'll talk about the next one a little bit more when we get there. We're also talking about the Marvels Epilogue. We've been spending a lot of time going through all of the Marvels by Kurt Busiek and art by originally Alex Ross and then that other guy. But back to Alex Ross. We'll talk about all that. Last year, the Marvels Epilogue. So we'll finish off with that today. But for now, just a book one of Ocarina of Time and Marvels Epilogue.
Yeah. It's kind of like Final Fantasy VII. It's kind of like Final Fantasy VII Remake, where we made this episodic.
We did.
It is like that.
Yeah, but this doesn't hard divide. Also, it doesn't hard divide like the adult and child sections, which I thought was maybe how they were going to break it up. It goes a little into the adult period, is what.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with the game, maybe I don't know if we should talk about what the game is.
Spoilers. The Legend of Zelda is a video game series. No, I think people generally probably know.
Yeah.
If you know comic books and you don't know what Legend of Zelda is, like, I don't know how that would happen. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
this,
guess-
as we mentioned, this game came out in 1998. It was the first 3D Zelda. People did give it a little bit of a hard time because its plot is very much Link to the Past's plot, and really like fortified 3D Zelda plots of like, this is what it's gonna be, of like Ganon's there, the princess, the whole thing that is, it's in the first two Zeldas, but they're so like loosey goosey that it's not what people think. Like Link to the Past is, I think, what people really think of as
Yeah.
the Zelda story.
Yeah, I think it's about time for an Ocarina of Time remake. You know, I
They
feel
did
like,
one in 2011 for
like
the
it's,
3DS.
Yeah, the 3DS.
Which is,
But they need a Switch version. Yeah.
yeah, they
Yeah,
need a Switch
yeah.
version, and it's a 3D game without like camera control, which is still
yeah.
or like it's a weird camera control.
Yeah.
Right. I remember that being an issue for me.
Yeah, I
way back
remember.
when.
Yeah, it's like when you point your bow, you have to physically move your 3DS, which is on the one hand, it's kind of fun if you're alone in your house,
Yeah.
but if you're like on the bus or something, you look like a mental patient.
But yeah, it's cool. Yeah, because they really released this for the 3DS, and then a few years later, the sequel, Majora's Mask, which does have dual analog, like camera control.
Never
And
played
so
Majora's Mask.
there's a Majora's
I
Mask
love
manga. You can check that out. I just ordered it. It's in the mail.
I don't think it's to say. Oh, sounds like somebody liked it.
I did like it. I'm
yeah.
actually gonna read it more.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna have to check out that one because that's probably my favorite story in a Zelda game because it's so different.
Yeah. I'm going to change the name of our podcast to Some of My Friends Rotate Cameras. We don't even have to change the acronym. All right, so let's jump into the story here. 10 chapters in this first book, but they're pretty breezy. We'll go through them pretty quick. We start with Young Link, Chapter 1, the Deku Tree Incident. We got Little Link. He's the only one in the Kokiri tribe who doesn't have his own fairy. But, he just wants to go hang out with the Deku Tree, listen to his story. But there's these jerks that are bullying him. What's this main jerk's name?
Mido or Mido, however you say it.
Yeah, he's a real. I don't like this guy. He's like, you don't even have a fairy. You're not a real member of our tribe. You can't go to the Deku Tree. And Link is getting into a fight. They knock him over. And the Deku Tree sees this. I don't know how the Deku Tree snuck up on them.
I feel like the Deku Tree knows everything that happens in Kokiri Forest. He is a magical guy.
He's a tree that just like chills out in the forest. He's like in a completely different. You have to go through a little room to go get to him. So like spatially in the video game, like yeah, you're right. I don't know how he knew this, but I mean this is all very standard fare, but it translates well to manga, like and just like and comic
It
books.
really does.
It's like it's Peter Parker dealing with bullies, but instead it's Link in this little forest dealing with other bullies who are shorter than him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I always had, I maybe this isn't the time for our fan questions about the Legend of Zelda series, but like Link is surprised. I don't think he's that surprised, but when he finds out he's not a Kokiri, he's a little surprised. And it's like, weren't you a baby? Weren't you like 2 years old? Did the Deku Tree like age up the Kokiri along with him? So he thought they were the same age? Or have they always been children? Because when he comes back as an adult, they're children. They're like, who the hell are you? So,
so there was a point when Mido was like, because they're all like what, like 10 years old, 8 to 10 years old. So there's a point where Mido was like, looked like an 8 to 10-year-old, but then saw a 2-year-old baby there. Then get older. That's what you're asking.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. So did it because as we find out later, Link is a baby when he comes to the forest, and was he like smaller than all of them then? And then as time is passing, they're like, hey, he's getting bigger than us.
Like he's still a kid. He doesn't realize it. I think that's fair to say.
Didn't Saria grow up also in between?
No,
them?
she didn't.
I thought she was taller. Okay.
No, she's still a child. But my question is the Deku Tree, are they always 10-year-olds? Or is the Deku Tree like aging up the Kokiri so that they look like this, so that they look the same as Link until he dies? So that Link doesn't notice anything's going on.
No, I think
that seems very elaborate.
The Deku Tree
like
was just honestly not a good dad. Like,
but if you play Breath of the Wild, they don't look like that anymore. They look like little potted plants now. They're not people.
Yeah, but that's the Kokiri turned. I don't remember what they were called in Wind Waker because that's when they turned into little leaf people.
Right, but so I think that's what they always would have looked like, except Deku Tree is like, no, I want Link to fit in, so I'm gonna make them like basically a glamour on them so that they look human.
Okay, I like that. I like
so
that.
they were always leaf people. They didn't evolve in between that and later iterations of the Zelda formula.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's my fan theory.
But they have a glamour to see Link as a leaf, and he has a glamour to see them as people. Okay,
I like it.
But then when he grows up, he doesn't look like a leaf anymore. So they're like, "What the hell is this guy? He looks like a regular outsider."
Okay,
very
checked out. We solved it. We solved it. No prize.
I do
in
think
the mail.
Canonically, Link is just an idiot though, because so look, he's hanging out with this girl he likes, Saria, like showing off his slingshot, all that stuff. And he's telling her about this dream he had about a castle, but he doesn't actually know what a castle is. He's just like, yeah, it's a big house, looks kind of funny. And then she's like, oh yeah, there's all sorts of stuff like that in the wide world. He's like, oh, what is this wide world? Like Link doesn't know anything because the Deku Tree is a bad dad. That's what I think. Didn't teach him anything he needs to know. We get to this big old evil thing attacking the Deku Tree. It gets inside of it. What's this guy's name? Goma gets inside the Deku Tree. Yeah.
I don't need to read the comic to know all of this stuff.
This all checks out so far.
All the names. I have not played this game since it first came out, so I'm like very. Yeah, I don't remember any of this.
Multiple times, especially this part.
Yeah, and I played the 3DS version in like 2018 or relatively recently, so I remember most of this.
Yeah, I played a lot of it right after Breath of the Wild came out, so that would have been 2017.
Right.
Yeah. So basically, like in the game, you go. It's a very like basic dungeon. I could beat it like in like 7 or 8 minutes at this point. It's only like 3 or 4 rooms.
Ooh la la!
I know.
Yeah, you don't have to get the compass or the dungeon map pro tip. You just immediately run to the top and jump off and go to the bottom.
Right,
room.
I know, because I remember like when I got the video game like 20 years ago, I'm like, this is super long and an elaborate dungeon, and then it was like, there's nothing to this, and that's generally like my thesis for like all of Ocarina of Time. I was like going back, I'm like, it's very barren. There's not much going on. But we'll get there. This varies it up a little. Like he actually goes and does an adventure inside the Deku Tree, but then brings like Mido and I want to say somebody else. So it ends up being more like a little quest.
I thought it was just Mido. It actually goes inside with him, and he's got the sword, which is an interesting twist because in the game he won't let you to the Deku Tree. He's like, you gotta at least get a sword, and I hear him as Meowth from Pokemon.
These guys, like, trouble on the double.
You should at least have a sword and shield. So,
it's worth noting I have recently watched some speed runs of this, which basically cut out the middle because they just use a cutscene skip to jump to the end of the game. So that's all I really know.
Oh, you're doing like not the 100% speed runs or anything like
that. Not the 100% speed run. I don't got time.
Or all dungeons or something.
I saw, and I know we're going on a lot of tangents. I saw on Twitch there's apparently a thing where people play this like randomizer. Where it just takes you out from one room and like you could just show up at a different part of the game, and like people know the game so well that like they can just keep going.
Oh wow!
And like you just enter a new room and you're like, oh, you're in this other dungeon completely, and you're like, yeah, okay, I know what to do.
So the Deku Tree says to Navi, who's hanging out with the Deku Tree, says, "Hey, go to that boy without the fairy. He's going to be the one who can help me." Worth noting, the Deku Tree was like comforting Link when he was getting bullied and be like, "Hey, you're special, but I can't tell you why. I'll tell you later." So he says, "Navi, God, I'm finally going to go show Mido that I have a fairy now. I'm going to go boast to these bullies." And
I think it's normally black and white, but yeah, I think all the action sequences are really hard to follow.
It does help having played the game to like know kind of how this is supposed to work in the video game version. But yeah, it's strange. And like, Mido is like a coward, or Mido, however you say it.
But we're basically all dealing off of a game that's never been voiced. And we've all come up with our own interpretations of how these words are pronounced over the last 20 years. So I think
Mido makes sense. Mido makes like Japanese sense.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it that way, because that's how I feel like the Japanese translation would make the most sense. Although again, the version I read, they translate some L's as R's.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, I know what the video game version of this is, and it's not this.
So with an I in Japanese, most likely be a like a short I sound.
Yeah, small I.
Yeah.
But yeah,
like, Yeah,
Like
Mark Maron shows up later, and I'm like, that's not your name. You don't work at the ranch.
Oh, Mario, you mean? Yes.
Yes. So yeah, Mito's a coward, and he's like, "Oh, you can have the sword." And Link goes out on his way to go, I guess, meet the princess in the castle, not knowing what the hell he's doing.
Yeah, well, first off, Mito gets like half credit from the Deku tree because he's holding the sword or something. I don't know. I'm not into it. We also like the Deku tree is basically dead. He says, "Listen, it wasn't Goma's fault. She was just a bug. It was this other jerk, the ruler of the desert people. He wants the Triforce. You got to go stop him." Link. Is that how it was in the video game also?
The tree dies.
A shield out. Okay.
Yeah.
He gets the shield. I think the shield is acquired before you even go into the dungeon.
Yeah, the shield, it's the silliest part of the game. I just started the 3DS version today. You have to pay, you have to buy it. So you have to just scrounge around to get 40 rupees to buy the shield.
Oh. No, I like this version better, making it out of the Deku tree's remain.
Yeah,
it's
like a nice
good.
like tribute after he leaves. Like I think that adaptation works.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few things that like I read this and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense other than like it makes sense in a video game.
And it's more poignant, I guess, spoiler alert, when the shield gets destroyed, that it's like, oh, this is like memento from his fake dad, his tree dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that motherfucker would burn all the time in the fire.
Yeah, like the second you pull it out, it's caught on fire. You're like, oh, I guess that's not going to work.
But like Saria, he leaves, and he has this scene on a bridge, which to me is like a key like visual image of the game when I think about it that like is not really highlighted at all in this adaptation. But
it's an important cutscene in the game, yeah.
Right. And so like that's where I'm thinking like this is interesting because like I feel like they adapted it today based off of like people's like nostalgia towards the game. That would be highlighted more than it was something made contemporaneously.
Yeah. And later when the fairy is like, oh, like 3 girls are interested in you, I was like, 3? And then I had to be like, oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
She's barely in this version at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the end of this thing, Link has like 5 women who are like, they really got the hot
It's a real
sport.
Indiana Jones situation where, and this I'm actually really impressed like how well this book adapts or video game adapts to a book in like a comic book format where it's like every chapter is a different like dungeon episode. He meets like a new like partner every episode.
It gets a new power up.
Yeah,
right. It does feel like a 90s anime, like in all the best and worst ways, where like the worst ways of like every girl he meets falls in love with him immediately.
Yeah, I was gonna say Indiana Jones because I'm not as familiar with anime, but yeah, it's the same concept.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's very similar. Although it is like unlike Pokemon, he's not pining after them; they're all pining after him.
Yeah. But so this is a stupid thing I think from a video game standpoint is Saria gives him an ocarina. And then he's just going to get another ocarina, like 30 pages.
I like what happened though. In like, all right, we'll get to all that. But did he ever have 2 ocarinas in the video game? No,
yeah,
right?
in the video game, the Ocarina of Time replaces the fairy ocarina, and we never even hear what happened to the other one. And if you are a kid and try to message Saria on the Ocarina of Time, she's like, Link, you sound different somehow.
Oh, really?
Wow. Because you're calling her like a new phone.
New phone, who dis?
Funny.
I love it.
So she gives him an ocarina, and he goes off to Hyrule Market. He knows he's supposed to meet Princess Zelda, and so he also knows that he has this emerald stone he's supposed to give the princess, but basically he like gets in a bind over some money because this little idiot hasn't even heard of money. And this little girl helps him kind of get out of the bind. Says, "Hey, if you play with me all day, I'll take you to Princess Zelda."
This is not in the game.
Yeah, and I thought at first, like when the scene started, I thought it was Malin from the ranch because she's the one who is in the video game at this point. Then I was like, no, wait a minute, this has got to be Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like it because it does give a little impetus into, spoiler alert, Zelda like is dressing up as Sheik later, and she's got a little gumption. Is that the word? A good word? Yeah. She's got some spunk to her. So she's.
Yeah, this book highlights to me like how bare bones some of the game's relationships are that like made sense to me like when I played it in '98. Like Link only visits like Zelda, like he sees her like at her like a little fountain. Then they escape, and I don't know if he ever sees her again until like when Ganon kidnaps her. And like,
Well, I mean, we find out that she was Sheik, and he meets
Right.
her all the time as Sheik.
but I think that this establishes more of like a relationship between him and Zelda, like a little more background that they know each other and they've hung out and they like each other more than he just saw
Right.
her once.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I never, because it's not really in the game. Like I never thought that they were like a romantic couple.
Right.
Like he seems to have more of a relationship with well, we'll talk about it in a later Jim getting scene. But he has more of a relationship with another princess that's not Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene where like
I always liked Rudo.
there's a lot of cool stuff. They spend a long time hanging out. Link wonders out loud if Princess Zelda is pretty or if she's an ugly pig, which you've seen Zelda like shocked by that.
Which again, this all feels very like '90s anime, where she would have the like square mouth or like round mouth and like X's through her eyes.
Yep. He's like, no, teardrops down.
Yeah, the tone of this is very like goofball at this point, and I always talk about like Harry Potter. Like Harry Potter 1 spends more time talking about the candy on the tray and the train than it does in its final fight sequence. Like it spends more pages talking about candy, which says to me like this is a kid's book, and that's where its tone is focused, which is fine. And then Impa shows up, and I never liked her design in the video game. For some reason, it really works for me in the comic. I don't know.
Yeah, you get a little
less polygons.
Brienne of Tarth kind of a vibe,
Yeah, maybe I just
She's
like
real
Impa
tough.
more now than I did when I was 13.
That could be
Maybe.
it. Where you're more willing to accept a strong female presence.
Yeah, back then you were like, "Who's this hideous old woman? She's washed up at like 35 years old."
Just like, hey, what's up, Impa?
Wow.
How's it going?
Can't believe
Also,
you were so sexist as a child.
Yeah,
Tim.
probably is. No, I think also just like her design, like it's less triangular, but it like works better, and I think it works better with the artist's style.
And she's a really good character in this too.
Yeah,
and they like have to establish that do the legwork of like why she dressed like this. It's like, oh, because she's like a ninja person basically.
So they're hanging out, they're having a nice day, but Link protects. Sorry. So Impa shows up and says, "Hey, kid, you seen a princess around here?" And Link's like, "No, I don't know," because he really doesn't know. But then they hang out, and these bandits come looking for the Ocarina of Time, and they're like, "Hey, you! But we know who you really are. Give us the Ocarina." And Link defends her, but then
The Gerudos are also from Brooklyn, so both Mito and the Gerudos.
Pretty much everybody's from Brooklyn. If they're, I feel like that's a good like jerk accent,
Yeah, bad guy
What
boys.
podcast I was listening to some podcasts that were like every single like bug, in like a raid commercial. Also, it's like, "Hey, I'm a slug. Hey, I'm a roach. Why you trying to kill me with your bug spray? Hey, I'm mucus. I'm gonna mess with your nostrils."
Yeah, I was gonna say the mucus is what I was thinking of from those two Mucinex commercials.
Yep, that guy. Oh. So Impa shows up and is like, "All right, princess, I gotta get you out of here. It's a mess." And Link's like, "Hey, where'd they go?" Oh. But eventually he makes his way to the castle and is like, "Oh, wait a minute, it's you. Oh, all right, cool." He finally realizes that the little girl was Princess Zelda the whole time.
Oh, cool. That panel is actually the last panel of the entire book because I read ahead. That's cool. That
Right,
one where they're standing in front of each other. That's where the book ends. And I was like, oh, this is a really beautiful image.
Yeah, that's the freeze image of the game too, which is a well-known, well-regarded video game, Ocarina of Time. Like it won like best game ever awards a bunch of times. But yeah, that is the freezing image. Is he goes back to the past and sees Zelda again, and then it like goes to black and white on that image.
Oh, really?
So yeah, the manga clearly knew that was going to happen.
Okay, all right. So Ganondorf then shows up to talk to the princess. And he was like, "Hey, we just want to be friends with your tribe. Also, give me that ocarina." And she's like, "Wait a minute, these bandits were also asking me for that just a second ago. And you're a jerk, so no, get out of here." Link gives the princess the Emerald Stone. Is that how it goes? Or that's one of the stones?
Yeah, he shows that he has it. And she's like, "There's 2 more stones you have to get to the Door of Time, to get the Triforce, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah, it's Zeldas are generally structured as 3 MacGuffins, and then the world opens up, and then you have like 5 to
4 MacGuffins.
5 to 8
Yeah.
more, which I would
Yeah, except Breath of the Wild, where there's 4 MacGuffins total, and you can do them in any order at any time, however you like.
You have like the 3 tiny MacGuffins on the plateau, but they're a lot quicker to get to. I think.
Right, but right, and then once it opens up, yeah, you just got 4 things.
Right.
Do them however or whenever.
Yeah, and this was like an age difference versus Link to the Past was like Light World, Dark World. Wind Waker just kind of opened up more.
Yeah, you did the kids dungeons, and then you found out what the plot of Wind Waker was after you did the kids dungeons.
Yeah.
Because you go, spoiler alert, to the bottom of the ocean and realize that you are living in the water world of Ocarina of Time.
So yeah, the next couple of issues are basically him going after the other 2 MacGuffins. Chapter 4 is the search for the Stone of Fire. I wrote my first note here is the jokes just don't really land. I don't know if that was a reference to something in particular, but I feel like the comedic timing of this whole book is a little off. Right?
So I can't tell also because y'all are reading like a
translation.
Translation, so we're reading different versions of it. I feel like the first couple of chapters, at least the adaptation feels very functional. Like everything, and I'm guilty of this too. I've adapted several Sherlock Holmes books, so I'm reading this and I'm like a lot of my text is very like functional. It's like just trying to get the plot beats down and not adding like any fun flourishes to it. So I think this book picks up in the back half, and I don't know if it's just because I'm not as familiar with the back half of the game as the first half of the game because I replayed the beginnings, a dozen times, so I'm more precious with it than this back half. But like, I don't think
we talked about it a little bit off mic, but like I feel like the back half has more room for exploring because so much of it is there's just dungeon
right. There's
as
not
an
as much
adult.
plot. Whereas there's a lot more like plot groundwork laid down and like introducing of the world that goes down here. Like he rolls into Goron Village. Is this the one where he rolls? Does he roll into Goron Village in this one?
Yeah. I mean, he does, but it's a funny turn of phrase because he in fact rides a horse, not the Goron's role.
Well, he meets Malin, I guess, and gets the horse. I skipped kind of over.
Well, he doesn't meet her yet because he just is like out and about playing the ocarina, and his horse Epona shows up. Not his horse, but a horse. And we just get a little scene of her back at the ranch going like, "Hey, where'd Epona go?" Oh,
yeah. So Epona, famous wild horse that Link is best friends with. My sisters would force me to play the game just to ride Epona around.
That's hilarious. I was playing it today, and I was playing a file I hadn't played in a couple of years. And I was like, I was walking around as an adult, and I'm like, this is too much bullshit. I'm just gonna go to Epona. So I went to Lon Lon Ranch, and Malin basically talked to me like I hadn't learned Epona's song. And I'm like, fuck, I have to go like back in time again, go talk to her, learn the song, and then I can go get this stupid horse. Because Epona, I was in the little stables, and that horse kept running away from me. Unlike here, where he just meets it. But he goes.
We gotta. Go ahead.
He goes to. I was going to transition to him going to Goron Village and basically like,
give
me the rock. I need the rock.
I want to talk about my favorite video game horses for a second because, like Epona, Epona might have been my first video game horse. I don't know. Maybe I can't think of any beforehand. But
number one horse in all the media is Little Sebastian.
Fair.
Which Little Sebastian, which is a Mike Schur show, and then I was just watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine this week, and apparently I think it's just a writer trope of Mike Schur's to just like anthropomorphize horses because they have a horse that they all hate in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Sergeant Peanut Butter, who just got promoted to Lieutenant Peanut Butter, and they were pissed. They were pissed. So I feel like
I haven't played Shadow of the Colossus, and Aggro is my favorite.
Oh, Aggro is. I was gonna say he's definitely like top because I was thinking I'm like Epona might be my number one, but yeah, Aggro is right up there at the top, and then of course your Stardew Valley horse, which you can name yourself, which is
I never got a horse in Stardew Valley. I didn't make it that far. Oh.
You gotta get a horse. That way you can, easily have time to give people gifts on their birthdays, and then go to the mine and do like 50 lessons.
All right, so yeah, he goes to that was a fun aside.
This is just video game talk now.
So these 2 episodes are very like kind of freak of the week. He goes to a village, they got a problem, he solves the problem, gets a reward.
It works really well.
I thought it was interesting too because in the video game he has to go through Kakariko Village, and they just totally cut that part out.
Right.
I was like, he's just not going to go there because he just went straight to the mountain. I was like, huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
because like, again, more video game talk. You have to go to Kakariko Village, and the game basically tells you like, hey, you might want to check out that graveyard and see what else is going on. Like, there's a bunch of side quests that I think it is very smart in like a 1998 video game perspective to be like, hey, there's a bunch of things you can do that aren't the plot of this game.
Yeah. Which I mean, I don't know, like in all of like Zelda's, like Link's Awakening is the one I'm probably most familiar with, and that was like totally just like a dick around game in between dungeons. And,
yeah, where some animal somewhere is like, hey, I could use some, I don't know, some letter from Will Wright from The Sims if you want to send me that.
Yeah, that was cool. I loved it. It was more like, I need to get my chain chomp back, and I'm like, haha, I'm taking this chain chomp. I'm gonna go eat everything across the entire overworld first. We'll see what's going on.
Cute.
But like, yeah, adaptation wise, it's very like freak of the week. And Zelda games are, at least at this point, are very structured, where I feel like you spend like an hour or two just trying to get into the dungeon, and then you spend like 1 to 2 hours on the dungeon itself. So you got to solve whatever problem is going on with Goron City to then be allowed into the dungeon. And the same thing happens with the next one and the Forest Temple, and it's basically
yeah. I mean, it's good design because you're like, oh, there's only 5 dungeons, or as an adult, but you're like, actually, there's like 10, because you have to sit there and like open every dungeon by going to like a mini dungeon and doing all that stuff.
Right, exactly.
But you don't think of it as like a grind. You're like, oh, but that was fun. I was just trying to unlock the real.
Yeah, you were just exploring and figuring out. Yeah. So these Gorons, we haven't really talked about them. They like basically live in like a volcano-y kind of place. They eat rocks. They're tough. Their leader does not trust Link. He says, no, you can't have this thing.
Well, it is kind of fucked up that Link just thinks he's going to take these three cultures, like biggest, most prized, like jewel item, and they're just going to give it to some like interloper who just runs through their town. Like, it's
right. Well, the Deku Tree gave it to him.
Huh?
The Deku Tree gave it to him, so he doesn't know.
The Deku Tree was a bad dad. We have settled them. He's
I
not
guess he
good.
probably is not very. I bet Link is not very culturally competent to understand that they may not do that.
Yep.
Right. He doesn't understand that this is like a valuable thing that he has to exchange for goods and services.
So the Dodongo's problem. I'm sorry. The Goron. I'm messing up all the names now. The Goron's problem is that Dodongo is in the spot where they get the tastiest rocks. So they can't eat the tastiest rocks anymore. And there's a baby who's starving, which like just feed it some less tasty rocks, maybe? I don't know. But
picky eater baby. You don't understand this, Kia.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can only give them chicken nuggets.
Like when we had this quarantine go down, and like stores started having shortages a couple weeks ago. I'm like, fuck. Like, what do I do here? Like, I'm like, this kid eats like 5 things, and he's very particular about like the brands and labels. And I'm like,
oh no.
And like, y'all might be listening. Well, just fucking make your kid do it. Like, sometimes it's just easier to give in.
So you can identify with the Gorons. They are under quarantine because of Dodongo, and they can't have the tastiest rock.
Yes,
that's fair.
Which is their chicken nuggets or
rationing, but specifically this brand of chicken nuggets.
Yeah, brand of chicken nuggets. So he goes in to fight Dodongo, discovers some bombs in the process. Some fights. Leaves with the rock. They're happy with him. They're best friends now. Yeah. And
then Epona runs off.
Yeah. Which was a strange way to introduce her, I thought, in this. I was like, wait a minute, we didn't even use her in this fight. Like, Link did nothing with her. Okay, that's fine. But in the next issue, Chapter 5, he does meet Lon Ranch. What was the owner's name again?
It's Malin, and Malin's the girl Talon. And he's definitely modeled after Mario, because his ranch hand Ingo is modeled after Luigi.
Yes.
That's right. So he learns Epona's song, and does he take Epona with him?
No, the stupid owl who, if you've replayed this game in the last 15 years, you hate this owl. I know I do.
This owl looks mean. I instantly think this owl is a bad guy, or like Ganondorf in disguise or something.
I hate him so much. He he has a bunch of unskippable cutscenes where, like, if you go to the Lost Woods to talk to Saria, this stupid owl is like, "Hey, let me have like a 10-paragraph conversation with you," and then at the end, because you're just hitting the like speed through text button. At the end, he's like, "Did you understand what I said?" And then the default is no.
No, dope.
So if you say no, he's like,
"Let
let me start it again," and you're like, "God damn it, I hate you so much."
Speed run stress. You gotta say you understood it. That's the speed run strat.
So you have to immediately switch over and like, yes, I heard all of that. I was just speed listening. And then he's like, "Oh, you're very smart, Link." I hate him. He's the most annoying character in this game, and in the video game. I think the gossip stones tell you who the hell he is. Like, he never explains himself in the game.
Oh.
But here he's like, "Oh, my name is Kapora Gabora," or whatever it is.
Yeah, does he I think he says his name in the game. He's also in Link's Awakening, which is my main Zelda entry point. So I knew who he was. I was like, "Oh, this guy's cool." So the interesting idea of you interpret him as like, this might be Ganon. I've never had that thought in my head, Kia. But I wonder if I can.
He's drawn so mean.
It's super interesting. Because like you could definitely do his pattern of like the same as like Ganondorf's like, like designs. You could.
And
do
he's
that
like,
with
"I've
his
been
feathers."
watching you." Like he tells him where the next stone is. It's with the Zoras. And I'm like, oh, maybe he needs Link to get it because he can't go underwater or something, and then he's going to steal it from him. Look, I don't know. But
Which
over time,
would be smart, yeah.
It would be smart. Over time, I grow to trust him because he does start to give him good advice and is really helping him out. I'm like, okay, all right, I think this guy's on the up and up.
No, I grew to hate him because he keeps bothering me when I'm playing the game, and he's like, "Oh, you're learning lots of new skills, Link," and I'm like, "Shut up, I don't care."
So. The Zora, the ruler of the Zora is like, "Oh, you got to help us. Our princess got swallowed by our god, who's like a big old fish thing."
I hate when that happens when your princess is swallowed by a god.
Like, it was terrible. She was even supposed to get married tomorrow. I lined up the most handsome husband for her. What's going on here? So, Link goes looking, gets swallowed by the thing himself. And we learned that she wasn't actually swallowed out of her own will. She was just hiding because she didn't want to take part in this arranged marriage. I'm like, all right. That's good. Was that in the video game?
Yeah, I was gonna say this is the part where I was like, "Oh, this is actually deepening the lore," because that part of the game never made any sense. Because she does tell you like, "This is the Zora's engagement ring" when she gives it to you, but that whole and she does say like, "I never when you go to rescue her," she's like, "I never wanted to be rescued. Like, I know what I'm doing." And then you found a message in a bottle that said, "Help! Please rescue me! Don't tell my father." That seems like it's a fake. Again, this is all fan theory stuff. That it's like Ganondorf wants you to do this, so he plants this letter that you'll find where she wants to be saved, and then when you actually talk to her, she's like, "No, I'm fine."
Huh. Very interesting.
Yeah, because Ruto in the game also like doesn't want to escape, and she like makes you carry her everywhere.
Yes, yes. That's the thing is if you try to just leave, she's like, "No, we can't leave."
Yeah, in the Master Quest version of this game, there's also cows like inside of Jabu Jalu's valley, because he's eating a bunch of cows, which is fun always.
There is a cow in the basic version, but you have to really look for it.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It's hidden. You have to swim under something, but there is a cow somewhere. But yeah,
I just don't like dungeons with a lot of electricity. So I'm never a fan of this dungeon. This is usually where I lose momentum and lose steam for this game.
Yeah, it is funny because I remember exactly where I was when I beat this dungeon because it's the last dungeon before you become adult Link. Mm-hmm. And so I just beat this on like a Saturday night or whatever. I was like 13 or 14 because it's 1998. Yeah. And I was like, "Oh wow, I finally got through this part." And then, we'll get to it. The next part, I was like, "What?"
See, I don't know how this game took me this long to beat because I remember playing it over months, but I got it the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and I had fucking nothing to do. My son is on this quarantine right now. He's 6. He's beaten 7 video games multiple times. He's beaten, because he's got nothing else to fucking do. And so I'm like,
oh yeah,
how did it take me this long to get to Jabu Jabu's belly? Because it's not that. It's what 5 hours into the game you can be completely done with it.
Yeah. I got it for Christmas, and yeah, it was probably like January or February at the latest when I got to that point. Because I remember I would go to school and tell people like, "Oh yeah, this is where I am," and I would spend like an afternoon and accomplish nothing, just like goofing around because I didn't know what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, that must have been it. That must have been it.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is another one of the ladies who I guess instantly falls in love with Link because she says, "Hey, here's my engagement ring, but it's the stone that he's looking for. You can have it, Link." And so yeah, he's done with that one.
And I think that's where the fairy Navi is like, "Oh, 3 ladies are interested in you already, Link." And I was like, 3?
Yep.
And then I realized it's like, "Oh, you meant Saria is one of those." Like, I don't even count her.
Yep.
Sorry,
They're all
my
into him.
BFF. Yeah.
Yeah,
This is
like
quite a jam-packed chapter, though.
It was a lot going on.
Because we went to Lon Lon Ranch, and we went to the Zora Fountain, and met Kuiper Gabora, and did the Jabu Jabu Valleys. Like, this is one where I'm like, man, we're really rushing this chapter here.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it was that Kuiper Gabora literally just carries you to Jabu Jabu and is like, "Here you go. This is the next dungeon. This does not happen in the game."
Yep. So in chapter 6, it's called "The Birth of the Hero of Time." He goes back to Hyrule Village, and Ganondorf is starting a rebellion. It's a coup. Oh no! He has put the king to sleep forever, or maybe killed him. I don't know exactly, but we never actually met the king, did we?
No.
I don't know. There's a big old battle. The shield burns up, as we alluded to earlier.
Right.
Zelda's bodyguard rushes off with her, taking her off for escape, but she throws the Ocarina of Time at Link, so he's got that now. Ganondorf shows up and kicks Link's ass, says, "I need that ocarina," and sees it fall to the ground and takes it. But that was Saria's ocarina. Oh, jebaited. Oh no. He is that what jebaited means? I don't know. He takes the ocarina and he's like, "I got what I needed. I'm out." And Link is like, "All right, well, I don't have Zelda anymore. I don't have Saria's ocarina, but I've got my other ocarina. I got the stones. All right, I'm gonna go to the Temple of Time." He plays the song he needs to, gets the Master Sword, and then what happens? He's all grown up, jumps to the future, 7 years in the future.
And Ganondorf shows up as he's opening the door, and it's like, "Thanks, kid."
Yeah, oh yeah. And Rauru, the old sage, is that his name? Rauru?
Yes.
Fills him in on what's going on. Ganondorf has been ruling for 7 years to break the 5 temple seals, awaken the 5 sages, so everyone's power together can stop Ganondorf.
Yes. So when Link opened the door of time, he grabbed the Master Sword. I guess the Triforce was like in the next room or something, but it froze him. But in the meantime, Ganondorf just ran in and grabbed the Triforce, which gave him the Triforce of Power, which made him super powerful. But like, there's a bunch of lore about why he didn't get the whole Triforce yet.
So that is where the young Link chapters end, and now we get 4 chapters of adult Link. He's the first chapter is a lot of recap. He is kind of fighting some skeleton, expends a lot of energy doing it. It's the same skeleton he met as young Link during the big the coup scene, which we didn't really talk about. But he's like, we'll lose this punk. He's like, "Hey, you're the same kid from before." Chop his head off.
Yeah.
Link isn't super efficient with the Master Sword yet. He's got to do some training. But Ganondorf does see that adult Link has emerged. And he's like, "All right, I'm sending my Phantom Ganon after you." And that's when we jump right into Chapter 2, where he is going back to the Forest Temple. It's like, "Hey, Kokiri... What's the name of this village?"
Yeah, you got it, Kokiri.
That's the one. I'm going to swing by over here. I'm like, everybody's still kid. All right, that's kind of weird. Mito is there. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, all our trouble started ever since that asshole Link left. Boy, if he hadn't left, everything would still be fine." And he's like, "Oh, but I like you, new guy. I'm going to take you over to the Forest Temple." We find out that Saria became the Forest Sage. We get he gets a bow and arrow. We didn't really talk about all his power-ups. He got bombs during Dodongo. Did he get anything during the Zoras?
King Zora
Boomerang.
gave him a boomerang, and he goes, "Thanks, King Zora."
That's right. He didn't use. I don't remember him using it, but whatever.
He used it. He used it once because he couldn't hit something with his sword, and so he had to
the
use
jellyfish
a projectile.
shocked him, so he had to use boomerang.
Yeah.
This makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Right. I actually like from a dungeon design perspective. The problem with a lot of the Zelda dungeon designs is that they make you get the weapon halfway through, and then the dungeon's based around said weapon. And I really liked how Link Between Worlds made you have the weapon before you even went into the dungeon, which is how I guess the story was structured. Because then the entire dungeon can be focused on it from the beginning and like teaching you how to use it. So Link Between Worlds, I'd recommend that one. Check that one out.
Makes sense. So he, releases Saria, and they're like, "Okay, great, I'm the first sage, cool."
And so sad when I read that in the video game. When I saw that in the video game, I was like, "This is my childhood friend, and now she's going to be a sage, and she's going to be trapped in a crystal forever, and she's going to be like immortal, but like I'm never going to hang out with her again." I was really sad about that. Saria made a huge impression on me for literally being like in 3 scenes.
Wow. Interesting. So what else happens here? He's on his way out of the village, and Mito's like, "Oh, you're like the best friend I've ever had. I love you." And he decides not to tell him that he's Link because he's like, "Yeah, I want him to like me when I come back and not hate me." So this feels good. I don't blame him. Chapter 3, he goes back to Death Mountain. I don't know what this feels very abrupt. All of a sudden, he's there and he's fighting the big dragon thing, and he's having some trouble with it. But then he runs into Sheik, and Sheik is like, "Listen, dude, you got to kill this dragon." And apparently, this dragon is Link's friend, and we get a flashback to when Link bought this dragon at a shop, and
Yeah, that was bizarre. I was like, where did this come from?
Yeah, what is going on? But by the end of it, it did resonate with me a bit because he's like, "All right, I'm gonna make this dragon try and remember me, that I'm his friend. He's just been corrupted. I don't want to have to kill him." But it doesn't work, and so he slices the dragon's head off, and with a tear, the disembodied head of this dragon says, "Link." And that's it. And I was like, "Whoa!" A lot of heavy stuff just kind of popped in out of nowhere.
Despite me being really like irritated at it, because like at the first half I'm like, "Where the fuck did this scene come from?" Like we saw all of him hanging out in the market town before he was chased out. There was never a break for him.
This would definitely be the the end of an Evangelion episode where after he cuts off the dragon's head, it plays the like sad music. You're like, "Man, what a bummer this is." we were having fun and we were killing all these guys, and now I got to kill my buddy, this dragon.
Tough time.
I think as like a solo issue though, I think this like absolutely works. Like it starts like right in the middle of the action, and then we get like a little like flashback story, and then like this kind of like sad realization of what he has to do and what he goes through. Like as a single issue, absolutely works. As somebody reading like the 9th chapter of like a serialized narrative, you're like, we've been with this character the whole time. There's no point in which he would have been able to do this. So it doesn't. That rings false to me. And also like that we've been seeing his entire journey to suddenly jump into him already being mid-journey seems off. Based off of like how they've established this serial narrative, But I also am like, it's cool that we're starting in the middle of the action. That's fine. This is a very Indiana Jones thing again.
A nice change of pace. Yeah.
Man, I'm feeling like Chris is saying like this is a very 90s anime, and all my things are like this is very like pulp serial of like Indiana Jones echoing the 30s to me. Like this feels like the same way. Like and now I'm thinking like maybe anime.
Vince, I know you don't have a lot of experience with anime and manga and stuff, but I think you'd love it all.
I think I might. I think me and Bruce are going to start some because he loves like fighting shows. And I asked like, the cool kid I know, their child, and I was like, they're like 13, and I was like, "I know DBZ. Is that like not cool anymore?" She's like, DBZ, and then gave me like a whole list of like modern anime to check out. So.
I don't know what would be good for a kid at all, but I'm glad you got to hook up.
Yeah, gotta go to the cool 13-year-olds to get your anime.
Yeah. You gotta go to the anime dealer.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend Evangelion right now for Bruce. He's a little young.
Yeah, we're not going to start with Ava or Cowboy Bebop or anything like that. But
no, definitely not. Yep. So yeah, next episode. Oh, sorry, the end of this episode, Sheik reports back to Ganondorf. Ooh, saying, "Hey, he killed that dragon. He's shaken by it, but he's not dead. And listen, Ganon, I'm still searching for Princess Zelda. If I find her, I'll let you know. I promise." Yeah, cool. Um, Chapter 4, the last chapter of this whole first volume that we're reading. Link runs into Impa again, Zelda's bodyguard, and also run into some guards trying to take Epona away, but plays the ocarina for her to remember, and so he's able to get control over Epona. Spends a long time. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Is Karakiko Village or Kakarika Village, is that on fire at this point, Chris, in the game?
No, well, it's after the water temple.
Okay, after the water
because it's
temple.
the Shadow Temple.
Okay.
He does a bunch of training with Impa, who is also apparently knows where Zelda is, and is about to tell him, but then Dark Link attacks. And he's also riding a Dark Epona at one point. Was that in the game? I don't remember that, but that's
I thought
cool.
that was in the water temple, isn't it?
Dark Link is in the water temple. He does not ride a horse. For me, as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, is the hardest damn part of that game.
Yeah, for sure.
Dark Link is tough also in like Zelda 2 for the NES. Because doesn't he like mimic every single one of your moves, and you have to figure out how to like if you swing, then he'll also swing his sword at the same time. You have to figure out some way to like get around it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think isn't he the final boss, or is he the second to final boss of Zelda 2? He's one of the last ones.
Yeah, he's definitely in Zelda 2 that's the case. In Ocarina, he's like a mid boss of the water temple, right?
Yes, but he's damn hard. Like, I remember as a kid, because you can, if you have the big sword, because he won't get one, you can just spam hitting him with a big sword, and he doesn't have an answer for it. Yeah. But if you don't have that sword, he'll block like everything you do, and you have to figure out a way to beat him.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird that they put this fight in Kakariko Village, because visually it's really cool in the video game, Kia, because it's like this like mirror. It's just like this like completely barren room with like a very shallow water floor, like maybe like half-inch of puddle, and then like completely like reflective. And it just looks like very stark and like different for the entire video game. That's where you fight Dark Link, or Shadow Link, or whatever. Yeah. It's really cool.
You go to the edge of the room where the exit should be, and it's just blocked. And then you turn around, and that's when he like appears out of the water. Like, it's pretty.
I feel like I remember this fight more than anything else in the game for whatever reason, or maybe I'm just remembering some other video game where you fight a dark version of yourself.
Like I said, I think it's probably the most memorable fight in Ocarina of Time, other than maybe Ganondorf at the end. Although I also like the painting fight in the Shadow Temple, which we glossed over.
The Forest Temple, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, the Forest Temple. The fake Ganon, where he comes out on a horse and everything.
I don't remember.
I
don't remember it at all.
See, the reason the Forest Temple is exactly where I like lost momentum in the game, like every time, because my TV was too dark to be able to see the Forest Temple. So I had to go over to a friend's house and play the Forest Temple because I couldn't see it on my own TV.
Just tune your TV settings.
It was a real shitty TV, or I was dumb. I don't know.
I guess
it was like gray. It was like if I turned up the brightness on the TV, it was like super gray. It was like really hard to see. So like I hated the Forest Temple and it's also just a weird maze. But like the scaling of the game is a little broken because like the Fire Temple is not that hard. The Forest Temple is hard as hell. It is. And so that's where I lose all momentum every time I play this game.
My sisters, who would force me to play this game, like they'd be like, "Oh, I want to play," and then they would get to the Forest Temple and be like, "You do this."
It's a very Sisyphean task. I love it.
Go ahead.
I do think it's very smart to focus an entire chapter on the Link versus Link fight because it is super memorable and super cool. I wouldn't have done it in Kakariko Village, but I think it's a cool idea. I think it's smart to focus this adaptation on that.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
It is cool. It would be cool. I wish Dark Link was in Breath of the Wild. Maybe he'll be in Breath of the Wild 2 or whatever the sequel game.
Death of the Wild. That's my name. I'm putting it out there.
Yeah, whatever the sequel that's coming out next year, right?
It's more like Breath of the Wild.
Well, they never set a date, but they revealed it 2 years ago. So I was thinking it had to be out by the end of this year, but now with everything and the fact that Nintendo said fucking nothing, I don't think it's coming out this year. But
yeah, we got a Mario Maker update that has been keeping me occupied. That's been
they got
great.
the Mario Worlds and they put the Koopalings in it.
frog suit and
Yeah.
like so much. Oh my god! All right.
Wow, I didn't even realize this. I'm gonna have to turn on Mario Maker 2 again.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, it's cool.
The biggest thing, the Mario Maker 2 power up, where you can like ride on enemies and pick them up, dude. It's great.
What? Like Mario Brothers 2?
Yeah, yeah.
What the shit? Okay.
And they got the music in there.
I was gonna say, is there like a level designer that's like Mario 2? Because that was definitely missing in their like the skins you could do for custom levels, where it was like, oh, you can make like Mario Brothers or Mario Brothers 3 or Super Mario Brothers.
No, they don't have like full like Mario Brothers 2 themed levels, but it's a mushroom that gives you Mario Brothers 2 physics, which is cool.
Interesting. You said that little bird thingy, that like kind of like gray and pink bird thingy, isn't there?
What? No, it's not. Birdo? Is that what
No,
you
not
said?
Birdo. The little tiny like it like bounced around. It was like a basic comment into me.
No, but they do have a cursed key where you can pick up the key. Yeah, they didn't really add a lot of stuff from Mario Maker 2, just the ability to like be those kinds of physics.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of other stuff. Go watch like just the trailer for it. It's like you watch and like, oh my god, they had a lot.
We opened up the floodgates to talk about video games right now.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah.
It's a video game podcast now.
So we beat Dark Link. He gets a piercing on his ear because that's like a tradition from the Sheikah clan that Impa is from.
I love that that's like trying to fill in the fact that like Link ages 7 years and suddenly has an earring.
yeah. I always thought Rory just was like, oh, this will look pretty cool, and just pierced his ears while he was asleep.
What else? That's pretty much the end of this here. Volume 2 is going to continue with a few more chapters as Adult Link, and then the end of the story, of course.
Yeah, and then there's some bonus stories also.
Some side stories. Yeah. We'll get into all that next time. I'm excited to keep reading this. It's an enjoyable read. Manga. How was the right to left for you, Vince? Because I know
it absolutely worked. It was not difficult at all. I think some of the actual like word balloon structure and the panel structure of like where to go is off. But I don't think.
But I think that's more of this manga more than all manga.
Right. I don't. Yeah, because I was like, sometimes I'm not sure when to jump back to the other side of the beginning of the page column. Or keep going like that. I think is wrong, but I think that was more based around this book than anything. It absolutely worked. That's why I read the entire thing all the way through, just because I was like in the flow of reading it that way. Okay. But I think it worked. It was not nearly as difficult or disorienting as I thought it was going to be, or it was when I tried to read manga 15 years ago. So I'm totally fine with it. I already ordered Majora's Mask. I've read this entirely. That all worked fine for me. I was totally fine with that.
Great. And Chris, have you read a lot of manga? We haven't really talked about that much, have you?
No, I haven't. I was a little too old for the like manga boom of the like 2000 early 2000s. I was not a big manga reader. I read a few things and it's like, it's not really for me. It's not like what I was looking for in comics at the time as like a 17-year-old or whatever. So I have not read a lot of it, but yeah, this was fun. Like I said, it definitely it has the feeling of like I've seen a fair amount of anime, not like a ton, but like anime will it will break character models to like have like a silly pose and stuff like that. That I never liked as a kid, but like now I'm like, oh, this is just a thing that happens,
Yeah, it's just kind of silly and fun.
And specifically for this, I'm not used to seeing Link drawn off model, and he's drawn like off model in like wildly different ways depending on the panel or page.
Yeah, when he is off model now, I'm like, oh, this is fun. Like I enjoy it a lot more as like an artistic choice. Whereas when I was a kid, I was like, I don't know. Like
these artists suck. They can't draw Link right. Like that's what I would have said.
It's weird.
No, it's like a purposeful kind of like he's so overcome with emotion that he's breaking his character model to show this like crying face or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the Pokemon cartoon does a lot of that.
That was, for a lot of us, that was our first big exposure. Like I had seen obviously, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I had seen plenty of Japanese cartoons.
But Pokemon was Racer,
Pokemon was one of the first ones where I really noticed it because I was already like 13 or 14 and I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah, great. So we'll continue this next time. But for now, it is time for us to jump over to the Marvels finale. Oh,
Marvel's
how long have we been reading?
Epilogue. We got
Oh,
past
sorry.
it.
I wrote finale. It's the Marvels Epilogue. Thank you. Um,
Yeah, because Chris
but,
texted us like, "Well, what issue was that called again?" Because I think he was probably like looking for to find it on Unlimited, and I typed in, I texted him Marvel's finale, and then immediately like, shit, I'm wrong. It's Marvel Epilogue.
yeah. But honestly, is this an epilogue? It's more like a B-side.
So,
That's the
it's fun, but yeah.
well, because I guess Marvel's is 25 years old, or was last year, because it started. It came out in '94. And we've been reading. Kia, were you asking how long we've been reading this? And I think this is our 11th week of it, because we read Marvel 0, then 1 through 4, then Eye of the Camera for 6 weeks. So actually, this is our 12th week. Yeah. So we managed to stretch Marvels to 12 episodes.
For so 6 months worth of Marvels for us.
Yeah,
it's been a long time.
It has been a long time that we've been talking about Marvels, but it's just a scene where they're at Rockefeller Center with the ice skating rink, and they're about to light the tree, all that kind of stuff.
It's like X-Men 80, Uncanny X-Men 84, probably, Chris, I think is what they
said.
It's a little bit past that. It's like 90 something. But yeah, it was when Claremont rejoined. It's a famous scene, yeah.
Yeah, and they're just kind of hanging out, and Sentinels attack, and we do see glimpses of like the X-Men beforehand, just kind of hanging out in costume. Wolverine asks him for a cigarette, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, I don't smoke." And Wolverine's like, "Huh, you confused me." I think, what? I haven't smoked in a year, but that's a fun little.
You're gonna get back on that wagon.
Oh no, I thought it was just a reference to Wolverine's heightened senses, being able to smell the smoking.
I just thought it was like, because this was like, is Busiek going to acknowledge going into this? Is Busiek going to acknowledge that Eye of the Camera happened?
I don't know, but I feel like we got 3 different alternate endings for Phil, because they don't really seem to line up with each other. The first book is like his assistant takes over and he's done it, and then Eye of the Camera was like, no, he never gives up, and he's a tired old curmudgeon, and then he dies. And then the third one is like, no, he instill like his kids grow up with this love of photography as well, and they are the ones who keep the flag running. Which, all 3 are, I guess, fine in their own ways.
Well, but... I read the interview, and Kurt Busiek says that this is more of like an interquel. That this is because this is. I just double checked. It's X-Men '98. Yeah. It's Claremont and Dave Cockrum. It's a famous, like I said, it's I think the second Uncanny X-Men issue that Chris Claremont does after he takes over after Giant Size, and yeah, this is 1976. So Phil dies in Marvel time in 1988 during the Fall of the Mutants. Yeah. So
he said it takes place issues 2 and 3 of Eye of the Camera is where this was an interquel, I think is what he said.
Yeah. So because we speed run through the 70s into the late 80s in Eye of the Camera, which, if you'll recall, is one of the things I didn't like about it. Was how it's like his daughter should be like 30 years old by this point, but they're like, no, it's only been a couple years. But yeah, this was, this is like the start. I mean, obviously it's past the official start, but this is where Uncanny X-Men is like really becomes, a big deal. And, it's 1976. It's like a turning point where I think Jim Shooter takes over right around this time, and the Marvel books get a lot better. It was like around this time that X-Men had its great run, Daredevil had its great run, like Marvel just in general had like a mini renaissance from like 1976 to like 1982.
Yeah, and I think what Busiek was saying is he wanted to highlight like Storm, because the original Marvels is very white and very male.
Yeah. Yes.
And so Storm is a very big black female character, and he wanted to like highlight like her introduction into the world for this Marvel's epilogue, which I think is a really cool choice, and like highlighting how awesome she is.
It was a very cool choice. It did feel slightly obvious to me, just because there's another page where he's mentioning like every black superhero that they have at this point. Mm-hmm. And talking about like Black Panther fighting KKK, and I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing. You're making up for yourself. All right, that's fine. But it did feel a little like opaque, transparent.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah. And like, and that's what Marvel was doing. Like, it was very like Falcon became Captain America's like not quite sidekick, but basically sidekick. Black Panther had his own series. Like they had a real push. Luke Cage got his series started right before this, so like there was like a big push. And yeah, I do like that it is more from his daughter's point of view than Eye of the Camera ever was. Because you are seeing it through their eyes, where they're like, "Wow, this is cool! Like Storm is awesome." Whereas Phil, like historically, has been like, "Oh, I don't know about this." Like he has this ambivalent relationship with the heroes, where he'll have like moments of awe, but at the same time, will be like, "But what about this?" So like seeing his kids react and just like, "Oh, mutants are cool." Storm is cool. The X-Men are cool. Banshee is, I guess, cool. He leads the team right out.
So I'm wondering, like, this is all great, especially, hearing you kind of say that it's from the kid's perspective. It's like, oh yeah, it really is. Why didn't he just do that with them kind of grown up and, like, make it an... It bothers me that it's not an epilogue. It bothers me that it's not an epilogue and it's called an epilogue.
Yeah, it should be about his kids. Like, I don't, Eye of the Camera, I think we've established was a misfire.
Yeah, it's absolutely a misfire. I mean, but the thing is there's like little things like I was like, man, Phil sucks as a dad. And in this one, he's like, oh, my wife was sick and I took the daughters out for Christmas. And I'm like, oh, Phil's invested in his kids. One, great. Yeah. Two, like, he also doesn't have any of the like just newsreel stories. Like he alludes to like several stories, but it's him aware of them. And like a good panel of him like smiling, I think, that like just works infinitely better than Eye of the Camera ever did, like trying to let you know of like the other events in the universe happening. It's that one. It's the page where he's talking about like the Panther fight and the Ku Klux Klan down in Georgia. That's the one, and it just works better as like peppering in those scenes in a way that like I don't like him just like hearing about it on the news. And I like them being in the middle of an event and seeing them and being excited by it. I think there's probably like you could probably do some like research on like or like some like therapy work on Kurt Busiek during his time of writing Eye of the Camera, because specifically like Busiek talked about how his daughters I think are 20 and 18 in real life right now, and so it makes sense that he would center a story around the late teenage, early 20s daughters at this point, a lot more so.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and not to read too much into it, he did have some health problems about 10 years ago. So I don't think it's exactly that, but I think there is a little bit of that where his health issues could have contributed to Phil's storyline.
Yeah,
but yeah, I do. And we haven't really mentioned Alex Ross is back for this. His artist is really good.
Yeah, that first page is so good, and the coloring is just pops. It's so good.
Storm's transformation when she's like struck by lightning to turn into her costume is so cool. Like it's just he is a very dynamic artist, where a lot of photorealistic style artists get kind of stuck in just, oh, this looks like an actor or whatever. But like the way his shots are staged is so cool that like the fact that it's ultra realistic is almost secondary to you're like, wow, that looks like something out of a movie.
Yeah, it's so good. Well, and also like there's a lot of cool stuff in this Marvels epilogue. There's like a whole interview with Ross and Busiek, which is I would say like super interesting reading if you care about Marvels. Like we're glossing over some of we're highlighting some things, but it's super interesting from the writing perspective, and like hearing how Ross like does a lot of like obvious photo reference, and then he paints over it. And the actor he used for his model for Phil Sheldon is the same one he used from the 90s, but like. I mean, I guess the dude was probably 25 at the time, and now Phil Sheldon's like actor has aged into the Phil Sheldon age, so he had to do like very little work. Like that dude ended up being bald and looking like an old Phil Sheldon that Ross painted 25 years ago. And so there's like pictures of them, like his photo models, like in the back of the issue. It's really cool. I highly recommend looking.
Yeah, that was cool.
And then talking about like stupid things that I hadn't even thought about. Like it was really easy for us to do photo reference of Rockefeller Center. We went down there, we took a bunch of pictures. Rockefeller Center hasn't really changed in 70 years, so you can gussy it up to look like it's 1976 real easily. And I'm like, that's really interesting. And also the Christmas and the seasonal stuff just like feels very pleasant. And I always like Christmas seasonal stuff, like an Animal Crossing or anything like that. So all around, I'm very like for something revisiting a story 25 years ago that was fairly inconsequential, all things be told, I'm actually pleased this exists. I'm happy.
Yeah, it was a very pleasant story. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I'm hating on the I don't know what they called it. It feels like a very just marketing heavy. Like, this is the end of the Marvel story, which it's not. But whatever.
You could do
nice.
more, but not Eye of the Camera.
Yeah. I did read the little joke page that was like felt like not brand X. What was that?
It was like mini Marvels, and it had Boston or Brooklyn accent.
Yeah, with Schneiderman and Reed-iculus and oh god, so many dumb things throughout all this. So many dumb jokes. It's there if you want to read it as well. I don't know.
It reminded me of the 90s when we had the late 90s, early 2000s when we had what's his name, who is a great artist. He did a run on New Warriors, and now he's doing I Hate Fairyland. What's that guy?
Oh,
yeah, I like that guy.
Yeah, Scotty Young. He used to do the Marvel's bullpen cartoons in the late 90s, early 2000s, and he had a very cartoony style where he would have Kid, Human Torch, and Spider-Man having silly adventures.
Mm-hmm. I Hate Fairyland was cool. I read a lot of that. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, Chris gave me the first trade. I liked that a
lot. This is the end of Marvels. Anything else we want to say about Marvels as a whole? We spent 6 months on it. What have we learned?
Part of me was I wish they'd go back to this, and then part of me is you just spent the last 6 weeks reading something you didn't like when they went back to it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm a little tired of talking about Marvels. I'm ready to be on to the next thing. If you guys don't have anything to say, I'm happy.
I liked it. I was pleased with it. I think it was more important to me as a historical lesson 15 years ago getting into comics than it is now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I think the first Marvels works really well, and this epilogue is kind of, this epilogue is essentially replacing the ending of the old Marvels, which Kurt Busiek again talked about in the interview, which was, when he had the future Ghost Rider take his picture, was his retirement. Here you've got 1975 Nova shows up and is hey everyone, I'm a baby, what's going on? And they're who are you? What's going on?
Well, which I thought, Nova, I'm new.
Yeah, I thought that was very cute. No one has heard of him. I think this might have even been before Nova #1. It would have been right around that time. Mm-hmm. So nobody knew who he was, and that's the forward momentum of his girls are oh, Nova seems cool. Of this is this is for heroes for a new generation. In 20 years we'll have Darkhawk, the greatest hero of all, and their kids will be introduced to Darkhawk, and we'll know that he was the greatest that ever lived.
Yep. So it's also worth noting, was Vince, you brought up that, is this our 4-year anniversary, or it was a few episodes ago?
5-year anniversary.
5-year episode? What?
Yeah, we started in 2015, right before the release of Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Amazing. Amazing.
So yeah,
who would have guessed the spinoff to a show that no longer exists?
Yeah, it was our third podcast, and the other two are gone now. All my friends are right here, and what was it? Saturday Night Love. Yeah. That was
yeah.
Yeah. So, which is, they've both been gone for 3 years, but 5-year podcast, nothing to sneeze at.
We've got
100 episode, 127 plus one bonus episode. We've been, not. I guess this is now tooting our own horn, but we've been a remarkably consistent podcast. We've only dropped 3 or 4 episodes.
That happens. We got live.
Because I think honestly, we had this quarantine. That was one episode where we were back a week, and we had a hiatus a little when the baby was born. But yeah, congratulations to us, and now we're fuck it, it's time for manga and video games.
Yeah, you got to branch out.
We've earned it.
We've earned it.
But yeah. Next time, it's worth talking about because we're in this quarantine. The comics industry is in a little bit of a weird place. There's some talks about a potential DC versus Marvel 2 coming up. So we thought, hey,
no comics are being published right now, and it's and they're saying pins down, which is crazy because everybody works remotely anyways. You could make more comics, but the whole publishing arm is just doesn't exist, and the distribution is even more decimated.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's just that Diamond and local comic shops are shut down.
Yeah.
Mine is
but
the Dragon's Lair in San Antonio is actually like taking pictures every day of their entire inventory and then putting them on Facebook, and then you can call and order, and they say pop your trunk and we'll throw it in the back of your car because we're not talking to you, and we're not touching you.
wow.
Yeah, my store in Houston, they're doing like internet sales, and they're doing like they're still technically open, but I'm sure their staff is like 2 people instead of their regular staff.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well, that's comics of today. That's what we're dealing with.
But like I know Gail Simone had said like we need to do something, and she's trying to get like all Marshall, like the other artists and teams on the other side of like, we need to do something big for the comic industry, like maybe like another DC versus Marvel, like where like just to draw people in the stores or something big like that. And so we thought like, well, let's go look at the original DC versus Marvel, which I know a friend had the issue 1, and I remember playing cards from it, but I don't remember much else from it.
Yeah, I've never read it. It's just 4 issues. We might go on to what are we thinking? JLA versus Avengers afterwards. Maybe some other crossovers with Marvel and DC. We'll see what happens. But for right now, just
there's several collected collections of just all the times that DC and Marvel like overlapped with each other. I know that Volume 2 is cheap. It's like $13-15 on Amazon. You know, it's just like Superman meets the Hulk kind of shit. But you know, might be interesting.
Yeah. So I'm excited to check that out.
I'm surprised it's not constantly in print, because it's going to be a little hard for us to find, but we'll find it.
We'll find it. It's out there.
Yeah.
And then of course we'll keep reading Ocarina of Time, and very exciting. What else is going on with us? We're all living in our caves. Chris, any your Stupid Mind stuff?
We do have a Your Stupid Minds episode on the way. It's probably coming out after this episode. We're continuing doing wrestling episodes, and this one is one people may have seen before. It's mostly about throwing a dog into the ocean, but I guess there's also some nannying involved. It's Hulk Hogan's Mr. Nanny.
Oh,
okay.
I saw a lot of that movie.
I never saw that.
I saw a lot of daycare. I don't know why. I do not remember anything about it other than the cover and watching it.
Interesting.
It's on the one hand not great, but on the other hand, it's better than I expected it to be.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Well, look out for that. Vince, anything you want to mention?
Very little thing. Me and Bruce have been playing Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite for the PS4 and Xbox 360, or not Xbox 360, Xbox One, and it's the melding of the Capcom and Marvel universes. They actually like have a story mode. And AIM from the Marvel Comics and Umbrella Corporation from Resident Evil have merged to make AIMbrella, and I think that's a great name for a company.
That's great. That is a great name. Yep.
I really liked it. The AIMbrella logo. That's all I got to mention.
Great. Wonderful. I'm playing video games, working. It is what it is.
Check out that Mario Maker 2.
Check out Mario Maker, and I also watched. I was really excited to watch The Color Out of Space. It's a Lovecraft
I'm gonna get
story.
that for Kimberly for her birthday. I think she's a few episodes behind, so she probably won't find that out. Is it good?
Oh, it's great. It's like Nick Cage goes crazy, like Lovecraftian horror. You know, the people go crazy, so of course Nick Cage is great for that. But it's just like it gave me everything I wanted out of a Lovecraft adaptation. I really loved it. Yeah.
Sweet.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to telling the world about that. That's it. That's how I'm going to be spending my time in quarantine, just texting everybody I know about that.
One by one.
One by one, yeah. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Thanks for helping us get to 5 years. I would say that we couldn't have done it without you, but honestly, it doesn't take much for me to get in here and record. I don't need your help. Thanks a lot though, for listening. We do love you for listening. It would have kept going without you. That's a terrible thing to say. Please keep listening, listeners. We need you.
That just reminds me of this one manga I ever read. The one was like trying to explain how to read a manga by like going like right to left, and then like the panel structure, and then it says "fuck it," like I don't really care. Like I already have your money. Like whatever.
I see. I'm not even getting any money from anybody. We have made no money off.
We've lost money on this.
We've lost. We have no for whatever those mattresses won't even advertise for us, man. That's
and then Kia at the end just berates his listeners for being not helpful.
Hey, do we have anything set up for people to send us money?
No.
No, we
Thank
probably
you for
should.
listening.
Yeah.
thank you for those reviews we have on iTunes. Thank you for the last 5 years. It's been really great just to like with all y'all, specifically you and Chris and Kia, just listening to and reading a shit ton of comics and talking about comics. You know, for the last 5 years, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you all. You know, it warms my heart, and I mean this when I say, Vince, I love you.
I love you too, Kia.
Chris, I mean this when I say that I love you.
Yeah, I also love Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
I love Oot.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We're out of here. Bye.